All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to unpack one of the most enduring, fascinating, and honestly fiercely debated mysteries of the ancient world. We're looking at Dronacharya. You probably know him as the legendary martial arts master from the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata. But today, we aren't just looking at his combat skills. We are going to deconstruct his absolutely most infamous act, the moment he demanded the right thumb of a young archery prodigy.
It really begs the question, right? Was Dronacharya just this cruel, biased teacher who mutilated a student out of pure spite? Or was he a sworn, bound servant of the state, making a ruthless but completely necessary strategic decision? What's so wild about this entire explainer is how this one single mythological event can be interpreted through vastly different lenses, depending entirely on who is doing the looking. So we are going to impartially map out the source material to show you exactly how that works. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Master of the Kuru dynasty. 2. The ultimate guru Dakshina. 3. The spiritual lens. 4. The political lens. And 5. The sociological lens. Let's start with part 1. Master of the Kuru dynasty, the making of a preceptor. To really understand Drona's later actions, we absolutely have to look at his past. According to the texts, Drona was born to sage Bharadvaja. But despite having this really high lineage, he actually lived a life of extreme poverty. The real turning point, the moment that changes everything, happens when his son, Ashwathama, is given flour mixed with water by some playmates who trick the poor kid into thinking it's actually milk. It is a genuinely heartbreaking moment. Shattered by the fact that he couldn't even provide real milk for his child, Drona goes to his childhood friend King Drupada, asking for help. And Drupada cruelly insults him. He basically asks how a beggar could ever expect to be friends with a king. This humiliation fundamentally breaks and reshapes Drona. He goes off to the sage Parshrama, acquires ultimate divine weapons, and eventually arrives in Hastinapur, where he's appointed as the royal preceptor to the Kuru princes. It's crucial to realize that his extreme poverty and that deeply traumatic insult forged this unwavering, almost rigid loyalty to the kingdom that finally gave his family shelter.
Moving right along to Section 2, the ultimate Guru Dakshina and the myth of Ekalavya.
Okay, so this is the story that truly defines Drona's legacy. Enter Ekalavya, a young boy from the Nishida tribe who approaches Drona for training. Drona, who is legally bound by his contract to train only the royal princes, rejects him. But Ekalavya is completely undeterred. He retreats deep into the forest, builds a clay idol of Drona, and just accepts him as his guru in his heart. Through sheer unbelievable determination, Ekalavya self-trains. Then, one day, a royal dog is barking and disturbing Ekalavya's practice. In a feat of almost impossible physics, Ekalavya fires a volley of arrows that completely fill the dog's mouth, silencing it without drawing a single drop of blood. It's wild. The Kuru princes see this dog and realize Ekalavya's archery has actually surpassed Arjuna's. And Arjuna is the prince Drona specifically promised to make the greatest archer in the world. When Drona confronts the boy, Ekalavya introduces himself as Drona's own pupil. So to resolve this, Drona asks for his payment. He demands Ekalavya's right thumb. And without a second of hesitation, the boy cuts it off.
Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would Ekalavya agree to such a horrific demand? Well, it all comes down to this ancient concept of Guru Dakshina. Think of it kind of like the ultimate unbreakable contract. It's a bit like inescapable student debt today, but bound by massive cosmic ethics. By unilaterally accepting Drona as his guru and creating that spiritual connection through the clay idol, Ekalavya bound himself to this traditional fee. Without giving the Dakshina, his education would essentially be ethically incomplete and spiritually invalid.
Which brings us to Section 3. The spiritual lens, devotion immortalized.
If we look at this through a traditional spiritual lens, things look very different. Spiritual leaders like Sri Ravi Shankar argue that we should actually, quote, see the greatness of Dronacharya. He took the blame on him and uplifted his student. He blessed Ekalavya with immortality. What is so fascinating here is the complete inversion of the victim narrative. In the spiritual view, the guru principle is absolute. Drona is actually seen as the benefactor. He willingly takes on the negative karma and the historical blame of looking incredibly cruel just to elevate his student. By asking for the thumb, he transformed Ekalavya from an unknown archer into the ultimate immortal symbol of devotion. Through this lens, Drona's act wasn't malicious at all. It was a profound, selfless test that Ekalavya passed with flying colors.
But let's flip the script. Section 4, the political lens, statecraft and strategy.
Yes, but what if we strip away all that spiritual mysticism for a second? While the spiritual view sees a profound test of devotion, historians and analysts taking the political view see something much colder, a calculated, preemptive military strike meant to protect the state. We have to remember, Drona's livelihood and his loyalty were entirely bought and paid for by the Kuru kingdom of Hastinapura.
Because here is the context you need. Ekalavya wasn't just some random forest dweller. He was the son of a Nishada chief. And crucially, the Nishadas were political and military allies of the Magadha kingdom, ruled by King Jarasandha. Magadha was a fierce, existential enemy of Hastinapura. So when Drona looked at Ekalavya, he didn't just see a dedicated, sweet student. He saw an enemy combatant possessing a literal weapon of mass destruction, his unparalleled archery skills. Therefore, if you look through the political lens, Drona's demand for the thumb wasn't about caste bias, and it wasn't about jealousy over Arjuna. It was a ruthless, but entirely logical matter of national security. He neutralized a massive military threat, and he did it without shedding a drop of blood. Finally, let's look at Section 5, the sociological lens, Dalit hermeneutics. So, what is Dalit hermeneutics? It's basically the academic analysis of texts to uncover underlying meanings related specifically to marginalized groups. It focuses on lived experiences and looks for alternative realities way beyond the traditional dominant narratives. What is so incredible about this approach is that it challenges us to look past the standard idea of victimization and instead find deep empowerment and resilience hidden within the epics. According to research in academic journals like the International Journal of Sanskrit Research, the ancient Indian education system, the Gurukula, despite its super rigid structures, actually heavily emphasized inner qualities and spiritual equality over physical limitations or social class. The epics are full of figures who succeeded despite being totally outside the elite norms. And this brings us to a radical, entirely different reinterpretation of Ekalavya's fate. In this view, Ekalavya becomes the postmodern innovator. And this is a mind-blowing historical footnote. He didn't just cry, give up, and fade away after losing his thumb. He transcended the whole narrative. According to the texts, he actually learned to innovate a totally new form of archery using just his index and middle fingers. Think about the pure anatomical impossibility of drawing a heavy warbow without a thumb, and yet he mastered it. Some sources even suggest Drona covertly taught him this technique to ensure his survival while still officially fulfilling his political duty. Ekalavya subverted the hierarchy. He adapted. In this sociological lens, he isn't a defeated victim at all. He is an empowered innovator who completely reconstructed his reality. So, bringing it all together, we have one single ancient event, but it fractures perfectly depending on the perspective you take. Through the spiritual lens, Drona is testing devotion, and Ekalavya is immortalized. Through the political lens, Drona is protecting the state, and Ekalavya is neutralized as a military threat. And through the sociological lens, navigating social order results in Ekalavya evolving into an empowered, innovative icon. It's the exact same story, providing three completely different yet entirely valid realities. Which leaves us with this final thought. How are you going to view the story of Ekalavya the next time you hear it? Will you see a spiritual master, a ruthless general, or an oppressive system being completely outsmarted by an incredible innovator? The beauty of these ancient texts is that they demand we think critically about the prism through which we view the world. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep questioning the narrative.